This
right now.
conference will now be recorded.
And since I'm recording this, we will have a link available as soon as GoToMeeting finishes processing the webinar, and we'll get that out to all the people that have signed up. So let's keep going. Let's get going. So first of all, we're going to have two presenters today. Myself, I'm Paul Sirico, Director of Marketing and Product Strategy, and Sean Vincent, who is our Director of Technology Programs. Sean, are you on the line? There's so many people here, I can't tell.
Yeah, it's a great turnout. I am here. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, good. Sean and I are going to be splitting up the presentation a bit. I'm going to be discussing some of the commercial implications, and Sean's going to give you a little bit of an overview of FDI, the FDI IDE. So, the first section of this is going to be the features of the FDI IDE 1.4. We're going to then go into what the impact is on existing IDEs for Heart and Foundation Field Bus. We'll talk a little bit about the commercial implications, and we'll leave some time for FAQs. So what I'm doing is in the chat window in GoToMeeting, if you have specific questions, please type them into the chat window and send them only to the organizers. You should have a couple of options at the top of your chat window saying who you want the message to go to. And then at the end of the presentation, it's easier to do it this way, I find. At the end of the presentations, we'll open it up to questions that you might see. Okay? Okay, can everybody still hear me? Because I'm getting a message saying that we don't hear the talk.
Yes.
Okay, so Edward Meyer, that must be something with you on your end. I'm not sure I can help you, but we are recording this, so you'll be able to hear it later. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Sean. Sean, I'll be the slide master for you, and you can give a little introduction into FDI, and you can also talk about some of the new features of the IDE.
All right, thanks a lot, Paul. So first of all, welcome and thank you to everyone for joining us today. It's great to see the interest in FDI and in the FDI IDE. This is an exciting time for FiedComm Group. FDI is gaining adoption in the marketplace, both from the users and from you guys as the providers of services, development of products, as well as hosts. So we're seeing this increase in interest in FDI. We're seeing an increase in adoption of FDI, and it's really positive for everyone. The FDI overview is shown here just as a reminder. We build the FDI package, which contains the EDD. It contains the possibly user interface and attachments, and these go together into a file that is distributed to an FDI host. The host then uses this information for both working through a client, being a user interface, or through the server, offering information through an information model, and also through communication to different protocols, different products in the field. And it's really applicable across multiple protocols, multiple products, multiple product types, and multiple applications, both from the asset management troubleshooting all the way through to the business logic side. So next slide, please, Paul. So the FDI IDE was created because we need a centralized way to develop FDI packages. While FDI is an IEC standard, it is an open standard through IEC. It is something that does require some tooling to make it a little easier for the development both of the host and the devices. Specifically, the IDE was geared towards the device developer, the group that's going to be building an FDI package to go with a field device or with some other product that's going to be distributed. These packages are created using the IDE in a standardized way. The IDE includes testing of the packages. It's a single place to develop for multiple protocols as well as for multiple types of packages. You can have UIPs developed. You can also have packages without UIPs, attachments, no attachments, and you can also build DDs that stand alone from an FDI package. And it's scalable. This is the tool that we as the FiedComm Group are, I would say, pivoting to or merging towards from the future developments. So additions of PA-DIM, semantic ID support, and other updates will be generated on this single platform. So this FDI-IDE is our future for maintenance of the tools necessary to build both DDs and FDI packages and any other technologies that we see in the future. So with an IDE as being a single IDE tool set, it creates a platform where you're testing on the same tooling that host systems can use for development of their hosts. So the common host components are used to build this IDE platform through the reference runtime engine, which is a reference host used for testing of the packages and the DDs once they're built in the IDE. And this single tool set allows you to have a better opportunity to test your DDs and your FDI packages before submission for registration. And we're going to be extending that with some additional testing created within the IDE to help you in that process to reduce the churn, if you will, in that registration process. And also, since it's a single tool set, it allows developers to get familiar with developing in an environment that's common for multiple protocols, so you don't have to learn different tools for different protocols. So next slide, please. So specifically, the FDI-IDE 1.4 that we announced is an exciting step forward. And one of the biggest points of excitement for me is the HTML5 UIPs. We traditionally have supported the .NET UIP, and now we're going to support HTML5, and I'll talk more about that. We've also introduced another exciting feature called Device Info, which today is available for HART, and it's JSON and XML-based device information. We have an OPC UA information model. This will be evolving to support the PA-DIM, and also a very exciting collaboration there with the OPC Foundation and moving that forward. We also have a single solution for a single IDE for multiple protocols, and we'll talk about those. With the advent of the FDI packages, we've created an online repository that allows us to store the EDDs and the CFFs for the FF devices, as well as the FDI packages for those products in a single cloud-based repository. And this repository can be accessed through host systems or users or through other means, and we'll talk about that as well. We also have updated the tokenizers. So the FDI package contains the DDs, and as you all are aware, that DD requires tokenizer. And those tokenizers have been updated and improved for both the performance as well as for error checking and handling. And that is a key update with 1.4 as well. Some other updates that are included in 1.4 are some features that you're probably familiar with from the DD IDEs, but these features were not previously available in the FDI IDE, and those include things like simulation, the communication logger, a method debugger, and the ability to jump to different definitions, a go-to, if you will, within the IDE. So next slide, Paul. So HTML5 UIPs offer us the opportunity to extend the UIP functionality. But let's think about first, why do we want these UIPs? So UIPs are these flexible graphical user interfaces that can have dynamic images. For example, when a user enters in the parameters for their vessel, then the shape of that vessel can be prescribed on the screen in an image that matches the vessel, or the level in the vessel can resemble the level plus maybe some foam on top, or the different consistency of what's in that vessel. In addition, you can have custom logic for diagnostics. You can have direct access to the device. So even things like doing a firmware download remotely via a UIP could be possible. And also the ability to import and export files so that as found, as left, and generating reports and specific troubleshooting and diagnostic information can also be gathered. So UIPs are a very powerful part of FDI. However, they're not really, they are not a necessary or a requirement for every product. So they do have, they are optional within FDI, and they do have an application that's very useful, but not a requirement. But when they're required, today we have the support for .NET. And now with the FDI specifications 1.2, with the introduction of FDI-IDE 1.4, we also have support for HTML5. And HTML5 allows for this platform portable outside of the Windows environment. So moving away from the Microsoft.NET environment into HTML5 really gives us support across many different features. And as you all are probably aware, HTML5 is not really a single technology, but it's a group of technologies that form this support for HTML5. And that really allows us to have this platform portability for the UIPs. So now we can have non-Windows platforms running UIPs. So next slide, please. The FDI-IDE 1.4 also includes the tools to generate device info. And device info is today available for HART products, and it will be continued to be evolved and extended over time. But for today, we are focused on the HART products with the device info. And device info includes the ability to remove or to extract metadata from the device, from the EDD from that HART device, and make a simplified application model for that HART device. So a subset, if you will, of all of the features that are in the device. And this really is focused on runtime and status information, things like process variables, status information, command 48, for those of you that are familiar with the HART protocol, unit codes, things that are really I would say, the core functionality of control using a HART device are included in these device info files. And those are generated in both XML and JSON format. So within the FDI-IDE 1.4, we include the device info generator, which is the application that will actually extract that data from the EDD and generate those files. And we also include the device info browser, which is the tool that will read those files so that you can verify their content and confirm that they are correct. Now, the device info file is generated from a proper DD, from a DD that tokenizes, and one that would be used in an FDI package. And so it's built into the tool chain so that when the FDI package is built, it includes the generation of the device info. Of course, you can also generate the device info using the tools as a standalone for testing and confirmation of its content. So next slide, please. The FDI-IDE 1.4 also includes the OPC-UA information model server. So the information model server offers cloud connectivity for non-FDI applications. So a cloud application might be a thin client, it might be something that is not fully FDI aware, but it wants to get the benefit of the products that are in the field, and it can use the FDI server to gain this information without knowledge of the protocol. So the outside application would connect to an FDI server that is using the OPC-UA information model and would be able to use local discovery services to browse through and find all of the content of the field device, and then read that information into cloud applications or other types of applications, monitoring tools or diagnostic tools that would then offer services that provide value from the data without needing the specific knowledge of the protocol or the specific knowledge of FDI. This will evolve to include the PADIM, the Process Automation Device Information Model, which is the device information model that was created for the process automation industry, and that PADIM will be added as a future enhancement. So today we have an information model. That information model will evolve, but the information model today allows us access via cloud and non-FDI applications directly to the devices today. So next slide, Paul. So also in FDI-IDE 1.4, we have support for what we consider to be all protocols. So the FDI messaging from its inception has been that it delivers one device with one package for all tools. Well, the FDI-IDE is now delivering one tool for all device developers. So you can build FDI and EDD for HART, FF, Profibus, ISA 100, Modbus, and other protocols as well. The tool can be extended for additional protocols. We have a generic protocol support within the tool, so we can even add additional users of the FDI IDE. But today, if we look at HART and FF, since that's where we're talking about within the context of FiedComm Group, HART and FF developers today must use an FFDD IDE. They then must use a HART DD IDE. And then they must use an FDI IDE to generate the package for HART and for FF. But now with 1.4, we're bringing all three of those tool sets together into a single unified tool. And that single tool is a platform for development of DDs, FDI packages for both HART and for Foundation Fieldbus. So this is a big step towards consolidating those tool chains, reducing the maintenance, reducing the overhead, reducing the skill sets of knowing the different tools for the different protocols, and going into a more consistent look and feel since we're using the same tool for all protocols. Next slide, please. So the FDI IDE 1.4 also includes the access to the repository. So I mentioned earlier that the repository is the place to find all of your registered packages and registered DDs for both FF and HART products. So the repository is an online cloud resident repository of those DDs and packages. And access to that can be done through RESTful APIs. It can be done directly from the FiedComm Group website, as shown there in the lower left. A user could visit the website, they could search for a product, they find its listing, they could then select the package or the DD, they could select multiple packages or DDs, and then they could download those to a drive and then move those to their system. Or, as shown in the middle, a tool could access the repository using an API, and that tool can then give a list of all of the content, or it can do customizable searches. So the repository could be searched for all packages of a certain type, for a certain vendor, for a certain model, or even all those that were registered or all those available after a certain date, all those that were placed in there since the last time you looked. So just looking for all those that were added since the last time you did a search, you could narrow it down by time. And so these options are available for these for repository access, and the IDE today has an interface to the repository. So when you're developing your product, you can see how the repository will look for a user, and also through the host FDI host systems, and understand that interface to the repository. So we have support for the repository. Any registered packages or registered DDs will also be placed in that repository, and you can then view them and confirm them using the IDE after registration. So next slide, Paul. I think this is where we kick it back to you, right?
Yep, I think we're moving on. I think we're moving on to my section right now. So thank you for that overview. Before I get too deep into this, we have a couple of questions. We have one question actually that's been asked. We'll get to that later, but I want to make sure that if you have any questions that are off the top of your mind right now, to start typing them into the chat window, because now we're going to move on to the commercial section of the presentation. So you know, one of the questions that that is obvious is that if we're combining, if we're creating a combined IDE for the FDI IDE, what does that mean for the existing HART and FF IDEs? And the answer to that was explained in a Bits and Bytes newsletter that was sent out a couple of weeks back. If you don't have that newsletter, we will send a link to it along with the link for the recording of this webinar once we're completed. But a lot of the information that I'm about to state is duplicated from what was in that Bits and Bytes newsletter. So the first thing is the impact on existing HART and FF IDEs. So as of September 17th, a couple weeks ago, new licenses for the HART IDE and the FF IDE are no longer being offered. So that means that if you go on to our website right now and you try to order a new license of the HART IDE or the FF IDE, you're going to be redirected to the FDI IDE ordering page, and that's what we are delivering from this point forward. Bug fixes and upgrades to the existing HART and FF IDEs will not be implemented after September 17th, 2019. So these products are basically going into end of life. However, recognizing that people are still developing and maybe in the middle of projects related that are using the existing HART and FF IDEs, we will be continuing to honor support tickets and questions about using the HART and FF IDEs until 1 year from today, basically until September 17th of 2020. So that gives everybody here time to finish up development efforts on any products that they might be using those tools for. DDs currently in development using the HART and the FF IDEs will continue to be registered, but beginning on January 1, 2021, so basically a year and a half, 15 months from today, any new registrations must include an FDI device package, and you need to use the FDI IDE to develop that FDI device package. So that's the impact on existing HART and FF IDEs, and putting that in a little bit more of a graphical form to make it simpler to understand. We'll take a look at this slide here. So, there's 3 important dates on this slide. They're highlighted in bold in the target date column. The first one is September 17th, and that's the date that new licenses of HART and FF are no longer available, as I previously said, and will not be making any additional bug fixes. Beginning December 31st, 2020 or January 1st, 2021, device packages will be mandatory with new device registrations and revisions. You can see that highlighted in red on that slide. And then on September 17th, 2021, basically 2 years from today, any HART and FF DDs created with the discontinued IDEs will no longer be accepted at FiedComm Group. So, so you have to start, the bottom line is you have to start transitioning to the FDI IDE. And we're making that very easy. So how do you upgrade to the FDI IDE 1.4? Well, it's dependent really on 2 things. If you're on this call and you have an active license to either the FDI IDE or the HART IDE, no worries. If you have an inactive license, so you haven't been maintaining your license, then we have a little bit of a different process. So let me walk through those independently. So first of all, if you have an active license, then you will be getting a renewal invoice in the quarter before your license renews. And in that renewal will be an invoice for the new FDI IDE. Okay. So let's just make that easy to understand. So if your renewal date for your existing tool set is February of 2020, sometime in the next few weeks, actually, you'll be getting a invoice from our accounting department indicating that your license is up for renewal, and that when you renew, you will be transitioned to the FDI IDE 1.4 release. Okay, and that once you've consummated that transaction, we'll deliver the new IDE to you via share file, like we deliver a lot of our software packages. There is an early upgrade option. So let's say you don't. Let's say let's take a different case now. So let's say that your license doesn't renew until August of next year, August of 2020. Well, in that case, you might want to think, hey, do I want to start developing on the FDI IDE now? And if so, I should upgrade early. So we're providing a path to allow you to upgrade your license from the HART or the FF-IDE at an earlier date. And there's an upgrade link. There's a form that I'll show you in a couple of slides that describes how you go about doing that. Okay, now let's go into the second category. The second category is you have an inactive license, so you haven't bothered to renew maintenance, and then and so we won't be invoicing you for new maintenance because your license is inactive. In that case, there is no upgrade path. You need to do a new license for the FDI IDE, and we have a link that will show you how to go about purchasing that. Okay, so pretty straightforward there too. Okay, fees. So the license fees, wow, I gotta put a better slide in there. The quality's bad. Anyway, so if you're currently licensing the HART DD IDE, your existing annual maintenance fee is $250. That's going to go up to $550 per year, as you see in the FDI-IDE per protocol license fee. And if you're currently using the FF-IDE, which has a maintenance fee of $1,800 per year, your maintenance fee is going to go down to $550. If you're using both, your maintenance fee will go to $1,100. So the point behind this is that you're getting the maintenance fees are going up, but we haven't increased them in decades maybe, and you're getting a lot more features for the money. Okay, so that's how that's all going to work, and you'll be billed for those new amounts when the upgrade comes about. Okay. If you want to upgrade early, and you click on the link a couple of slides ago, you'll be directed to this form, and there's a few mandatory things that you'll need to provide. So try and find those before you fill out the form. And if you don't know how to find them, you can file a support ticket, and we can help you out with that. So company name, license holder name, email. And then we need to, what's really important is you're going to need to apply the upgrade to an existing license, and you'll have to answer which license number you're applying the upgrade to. And we'll take it from there from an accounting standpoint and move forward. Okay, so next slide, education and support. A couple of things that we recommend you consider. The FDI IDE 1.4 includes many new features, most importantly, the creation of FDI device packages, which will be mandatory, as we stated, in about a year and a half. And it includes full support of DD generation for HART, for FF, for Profibus, UIP integration, and device info files for HART. So if you haven't gone to training or gone to a FiedComm Group workshop, now might be a good time to consider making that investment. We offer workshops around the world about 3 times a year. The next one happens to be in mid-November in Dusseldorf, Germany. And we also offer customized training at your location. So let's say you have 5 or 6 or a handful of people that you'd like to get trained on this new tool set. Contact us. Either through marketing at FiedCommGroup.org or through a support ticket or any one of a number of other venues that you'll find on the website. Trust me, they're there, and you'll be able to have us give you a customized quote for doing training at your facility. Second thing is I suggest that you visit our support page. We have some great links there on what it means to transition from the FF IDE and what it means to transition from the existing HART DD IDE, and there's support pages there and articles there. Finally, Sean and I have talked about hosting a couple topic-specific webinars in the future on some of the technologies that we, blasted out acronyms for that you might not know what they are, like device info and PADIM, which is an OPC UA information model, and other things. And we'll be sharing those with you. So that's all that I have for this. That's all that we have for this presentation. Thank you. You've been a great audience. We've got a couple of questions here that I want to ask. And Sean, this first question at least is for you. If you have any other questions, please, type them in. Okay, so this first question, Sean, listen to this. So let's see, this is related to UIPs. And it says, does this mean that hosts are supposed to support HTML5? Or if the host supports FDI, it supports both FDI.NET and FDI HTML?
That's a great question. So there is, it's not a simple answer, I'll say. So FDI 1.0 did not contain HTML5. So we had a specification that was released that was .NET UIP. Hosts that conform to that spec exist today because that's what was released in the market. And those hosts will support .NET only. They are not going to support the UIP because UIP or the HTML5 because it didn't exist when those hosts were written. Hosts that are created moving forward will support the .NET and the HTML5 if it's possible. So if you have a non-Windows platform, that non-Windows platform cannot support the .NET UIP. So if you have a Linux-based handheld or a Linux-based host, those hosts would support HTML5. And that would be the same as what you have today because today those hosts cannot support the .NET either. So it will depend on what version of FDI that the host supports, and it will depend upon, it'll just depend upon which version of FDI the host supports. So hosts today are going to support .NET. Those hosts in the future will extend to support HTML5, and future hosts will support HTML5 if they're non-Windows based, and they would support both .NET and HTML5 if they're Windows based.
Wow. Okay. We might need to put a slide in on that for the for this next for
yeah
for
yeah
the
we
next
can
time
definitely
we do
add
this.
that.
Yeah.
There is a matrix in the specs that talks about. Maybe it's in the notes to go with the spec. There is a matrix that talks about which version of the spec requires support for HTML5 versus .NET. But really, what this is from a device developer standpoint, if I'm developing a UIP today, I'm going to develop an HTML5 UIP. And the reason I'm going to do that is because HTML5 can run within the .NET framework and it can run within the non-.NET, within the Linux framework. So I would build the HTML5 UIPs today. If I have a .NET UIP already built and I've already invested in that and I have it working today in the systems today, it's still going to work tomorrow in those systems. And where it's not working today in the Linux-based tools and the Linux-based handhelds, it will continue to not be available in those. So really, if you have made an early adopter of a .NET UIP, there's no real loss in coverage. And if you're moving forward, I would say HTML5 would be where I would support.
Okay. Let's see. So here's a question. Okay. Since device developers register DDs and not IDE, what difference it makes is what IDE we are using. Oh, let me try and answer that. So you're right, you register DDs, but you use the IDE, which is the tool to create that DD, to create your DD that's going to be registered, your tokenized DD. So what we're saying is that the existing IDE, the integrated development environment that is used to create your DDs today in the HART and FF environments, is no longer available. And now to create a HART DD or an FF DD, you need to use the FDI IDE. Wow, that's a lot of letters. Okay. hopefully that makes sense. Okay.
I would extend to that, Paul, which is that the key, if you're creating a DD, is a tokenizer. And the latest tokenizers now and moving forward are in the FDI IDE, and we always need to use the latest.
Yeah, and they will not be updated in the existing HART and FF IDEs anymore.
Correct.
Okay. Any thoughts on automated test support? I'll give that to you. Okay.
The answer is yes. We are, with the creation of the single platform for the DD and FDI package development, we are now able to begin the process of extending automated testing for, specifically for HART DDs. We already have automated testing for FF DDs, and we already have automated testing for FDI packages. So really the missing link in there, I would say today, is the HART DDs, and we are working diligently to add that as a new feature set in 1.5.
Okay, I'm getting a lot of questions about distributing the slides. Yes, we will distribute a copy of the slides. Okay, are reference manuals available for the IDE and the technologies? Well, yes. When you license the FDI IDE, you will get there's an extensive user guide that goes along with it and explains how to use the tools. And obviously there are a lot of specification documents as well that are available to you as members. Those are all available on the website. And if you take a look at the support site, you'll also find additional information. Okay, Sean, this one's definitely for you. If FDI IDE has DD checks, does this mean we are no longer required to create SDC logs for registration?
The FDI IDE creates its own set of logs, and that replaces SDC logs. So the answer is no, you don't create SDC logs, you create logs using the FDI IDE. There is a transition period, obviously, so there will be a time where we're making that transition over to the FDI IDE, but there, as Paul said, we accept both for now, and then at some point we'll make the, I don't remember the exact date, but we'll make that transition to only on the FDI IDE.
Okay. Here's one from somebody I know, actually. Will HART DD registration still require source to register, and will the FCG be responsible for tokenizing the DD prior to release?
With FDI IDE 1.4, the answer is yes.
Okay. Okay, that's all that we have in questions. If anybody has if anybody's been shy, ask a question now. If not, what we will do is I think we'll add one slide to this presentation to address this HTML5 .NET host question. We will package up the presentation and we will include it and mail out a share file link for you to access it, and probably a few other pieces of content that might be useful to you as well. So seeing no more questions while I was stalling to give people time to answer, I think that we're through with this call, and we really appreciate all of you attending, and whether it's evening or morning or whatever, wherever you are, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.